What's up, Trainiacs? I'm about to head off to Kona because it's World Championship season. I am literally spending 2.5 weeks at the Ironman World Championship, and to kick it off, as we always do for these World Championship events, we are going to go through who I think is going to place well on the men's and the women's side. I wrote the script for this, and holy smokes, is it intense this year. So let's get right into it. We're going to start off with the women's side. Now, if I said anything besides Daniela Ryf was hands down the favorite, I'd be lying to you. Until somebody else proves that they can beat her in anything whatsoever, she is the queen of long distance triathlon. In both the half Ironman and the Ironman distance races, there have only been a couple of times in the past 5 years that she has not won. She is making a strong case for herself being one of the best, if not the best, long distance triathletes, male or female, ever. So to pick anyone other than her when she hasn't shown any chinks in the armor would be silly. But that said, I think that there are two athletes that are going to make her work for it more than she has in any other event that she's been in. And we call those the potential upsetters. Of course, the first potential upsetter, and this is the kind of the next great long distance triathlete on the female circuit, is going to be Lucy Charles. Lucy has proven that she scares Daniela in the race. She comes close. She is in the lead out of the swim, and over the past couple of years, she has not let Daniela Ryf bike away from her very easily. In the half Ironman World Championships, she ended up getting a 5-minute drafting penalty. Now, if you take that 5-minute drafting penalty away, that alone puts Lucy in second place in behind Daniela Ryf by just a couple of minutes. But the thing about it is that if you aren't in that hunt to win the race, did Lucy push as hard as she could have on the run? I know that her run fitness is better than it's ever been. So a couple of minutes behind Ryf in Nice could have been more like a couple seconds in behind if she had Ryf in her sights coming off the bike. So I think that that could be what happens here in Kona, similar to what we've seen in the past couple of years, where Lucy gets out front in the swim. She bikes on her own for a long time. Daniela Ryf comes up in behind her and passes her. Lucy ends up bridging that gap, hanging on to her for as long as she can, staying very close, if not right with her coming out of transition. And then it becomes a running race. And seeing how well Lucy is able to run this year, we could have ourselves a head-to-head matchup. Next athlete that I think could also do that is Anne Haug. Now, Annie has been pulling out of races over the past few months, so we don't know exactly how fit she is, but we know that in Ironman Copenhagen earlier this year, she did an 8:31. There aren't too many women out there in the world that have flirted with that 8:30 time in a full Ironman distance race. Were those withdrawals from those races because she's injured, because she's unfit, or because she's just focusing on Kona? I would probably say a combination of focusing on Kona and maybe just little bits of niggle injuries that she didn't want to exacerbate going into Kona. Thing about Annie is she needs to have made a big leap on the bike to make sure that when she gets off the bike in transition 2, that she's close enough to Ryf and Lucy to be able to run them down. She's probably the best female runner in the field, so if she's close enough, she could run her way into the lead, and she's got the speed that if she gets herself into the lead, nobody's catching her. Now, there are also some serious podium threats out there, and it's a really, really deep field this year. Laura Philipp, I think that she could be a Kona winner someday, but it's her first time on the island, and first-time island athletes tend not to contend for the win. Maybe a podium spot. Sarah True, same sort of thing. I think that she could potentially win Kona one day, but she's had to race 3 full Ironmans in the last 4 months, which takes a lot out of you. It's getting harder and harder to qualify as a pro if things don't go exactly according to plan, and they haven't for Sarah this year. Heather Jackson and Mirinda Carfrae are always in that top 3, 5, but personally I think that their absolute best races are behind them, and it's getting so competitive on the podium that you have to be on point, as fit as you possibly can in swim, bike, and run. And I don't know if they've got that well-rounded ability enough to contend for a win or the podium anymore. And Sarah Crowley, she's shown that in the last 2 years, she's been really focused on Kona and really consistent in Kona with a podium position a couple of years ago and a kind of like a fuzzy podium, like a top 5 sort of podium last year. But she goes around the world circuit being very consistent race after race. She's stayed healthy, and this long distance kind of race gives her enough room to show that run speed that she's got. Now, I think that there are a couple of surprises that could potentially eke into the top 5, maybe if everything goes according to plan, maybe get on the podium. And I think those 2 athletes are Susie Cheatham, who's had 2 6th place finishes in Kona and 2 pretty bad disasters, but also Sarah Piampiano, who's also had some top 10 finishes in Kona, but she has littered the podiums with 1st and 2nd places for the past 2 years consistently. And getting her on our Triathlon Taren podcast just recently, we know that she's putting in a big block of training, very fit, very healthy. And if she dials everything in for Kona, she's got the run legs to be able to run her way onto the podium as well. Now, on to the men's race. Now, frankly, I can't pick a clear winner. I've always hated those previews where it's like, well, here are kind of the favorites, but we can't say who's going to win. And I've always said who I thought was going to win, but this year it's really hard to do. Patrick Lange, I have to say, is the man to beat, because until you prove that you can beat Patrick Lange in Kona, can you beat Patrick in Kona? Now, the thing about Patrick is that every single year, he makes it really hard for me to pick him as a favorite in Kona, and then he goes and sets records. Now, I am not going to look like such a boob this year, and I am going to say that because Patrick is so well suited for Kona, and he builds his entire season around it, and he hasn't really gone deep into the well in any race all throughout the year, as long as he's fit and there isn't anything underlying that has caused him to not put out great races over the remainder of the year leading into now, I think that he is going to do what Patrick Lange does, and that's drop it like it's hot in Kona. He's built for that course. The reason that I can't pick him as the clear favorite, and I don't know which one it's going to be, is because if you said, Taren, you're an idiot, Patrick's going to fall on his face, and Jan Frodeno is the favorite, I'd probably say, yeah, okay, yeah, I'd buy that too. He is one of the kings of Kona, being so dominant over the years. And I had a theory after his injury that kept him out of Kona in 2018, that if he came back healthy to one race, that Jan might not ever lose a race for the rest of his career. That he would only enter races if he knew he was fit enough and prepared enough to win the race, because I think that's the legacy that Jan wants to leave on. So him towing the line on the race start, I think that he is absolutely, positively one of the best chances to unseat Patrick Lange. He's got the swim arms, he's got the bike legs, he's got the running feet. He's awesome, and I think that he could potentially win. The next athlete that I think could really come out of he's not an unexpected athlete because he was a 2014 champion, is Sebastian Kienle. Why I've always had Sebastian Kienle as like a top 5 kind of athlete is because he wasn't well-rounded enough to contend against these now hard on the swim, hard on the bike, hard on the run kind of athletes that have now come into Ironman distance racing. But now with Sebastian, his swim kind of is what it is. His bike is world class, so we know he's going to be coming out of T2 near, if not at the front. And more importantly than anything, he's putting out run performances that I never thought he'd be capable of. Putting out the second fastest run split of the day at Half Ironman World Championships in Nice, faster than amazing runners like Alistair Brownlee, shows that Sebi is running better than he ever has in his life. And if he's already at the front coming out of T2, and he can potentially run with Jan, with Patrick, we're going to be able to see a showdown, and then it comes down to who can suffer the most, who wants it the most, who nailed their nutrition, who nailed their taper. It comes down to like 0.5% of a percent, and at that point, it's kind of luck of the draw. I think that there are 2 athletes that could be podium threats that we'd be silly not to say they have a really good chance to be on the podium, and maybe if everything goes really well, potentially win. First one being Alistair Brownlee. Now, Alistair Brownlee, you've heard me say it before, I think he is one of, if not the best, like one-day racer. Take all of the nicks and niggles and injury issues that he's had over his career out of the equation. He is probably the single most talented triathlete that there's ever been. However, he's a first-timer in Kona, and all of the people who picked Javier Gomez last year because he too is one of the best athletes that there's ever been, not recognizing that there is a learning curve to Kona, they learned a lesson. Javier learned a lesson, and I think Alistair has to learn some lessons at Kona before he can win. The second athlete that I think could sneak his way onto the podium is the sneakiest athlete, the quietest athlete that has been on the podium for the past 2 years, and that's David McNamee. Even amongst all of these talented athletes that people go rah, Lionel, Patrick, Jan, Sebi, all of these favorites that are out there, David consistently just kind of runs his way quietly onto the podium and then says, all right, thanks, I'll do the same next year. And last year he said that he wants to work really hard at edging that up to a first or a second place onto the podium. The thing about David is that he needs to have made really big strides in his bike performance to make sure that he doesn't have a 10, 12, 15 minute gap to run his way onto that podium coming out of T2. Now, there could be a few unexpected surprises out there. Now, with the depth of the field on the men's side, I don't expect this to happen, but there are a few athletes that I think could surprise us, certainly with a top 5, if not a podium. The first being Tim O'Donnell, who is almost always over the past few years the top American, and he's been on the podium. He's been on the kind of sort of top 5 podium just recently. However, he's got a run injury, and like I say, when you're going up against the fittest of the fit who put everything into this one race, having any sort of chink in the armor makes it really tough. Braden Curry, I think, is the next athlete that could surprise us. He's all over podiums, all around the world. He finished 5th last year, and he seems to be really well-rounded, really fit, just generally a quality athlete, and it's that consistency paired with some knowledge about how to race Kona that starts getting people up from like top 30, as he did a couple years ago, to top 5 as he did last year, to podium. And then finally, we got to acknowledge the crowd favorite, Lionel Sanders. Now, Lionel just 2 years ago was a matter of minutes away from winning everything. He's got run speed and bike speed to be able to win this at some point in his career, but when you haven't had basically a full season of training due to an injury, as Lionel has, and you're going up against those best of the best, it's going to be tough. Even if you are the best of the best, do you have the depth of fitness that you need? Like an insanely huge depth of fitness is what's required to win Kona. So surprise me, Lionel. I want you to. It's great for the sport. I'm a fan. So go ahead and do it. Now, Trainiacs, those are my picks for who's going to do well in Kona. I want to hear your picks. Who's going to finish first, second, third on the men's and the women's side in the comments below. In addition to that, we are announcing that we are partnering up with Roka for the entire Kona series. And if you want to win a wetsuit, an entry to your choice of an Ironman race, floaty pants, awesome shades, go to roka.com/Taren, where all throughout the Kona build-up, every single video that we do that's appropriate is going to be sponsored by Roka, and the giveaway is going to be running over the next couple of weeks. Go to roka.com/Taren. All you have to do is put in your email address, and you can win one of 3 prizes totaling, I think it's $3,000, $4,000. It's good stuff. And you can look as cool as me. So that's it. Kona's happening. Best time of the year. Christmas comes in October for us, Trainiacs. Let's do it. Hit the subscribe button below if you don't want to miss any of the videos.